Since the release of the End update, admins started teasing dungeons in patch notes and in Twitter videos. It was an extremely hyped up update, but it turns out it wasn't a huge success like they imagined, or you could say it failed miserably for how much time and effort the Hypixel admin team put into it. Today, we are going to look at how dungeons have evolved over time and some major bugs that were found and the metas during those times. Hey, look, last time I mentioned my subscriber count, it went up a good amount, so I'll do it again. Hit the subscribe button since this video took a long time to make, and enjoy the video. Let's go back to July 8th, when dungeons were first released. The only floors available were floor 1, 2, and 3. People were going to dungeons with pre-existing gear like Superior, Frozen Blaze, maybe even Perfect, and they were getting completely destroyed. And also, people were actually using classes that's not Mage or Archer. Surprising, right? Then, people slowly transitioned to using Adaptive, and everyone got their hands on a Bonzo Staff no matter what class you were. You may think Bonzo Staff's garbage now, but at the time, Bonzo Staff was the best weapon, because it had no CPS cap, which means you can just jitter click on a mini boss and it dies like instantly, just like the Hyperion. Another item that was OP at the time was the Pigman Sword. You could spam your Pigman Sword, and the burning ability stacks on top of each other, doing insane amounts of damage. And also, some glitches were found. Many of you guys don't know, but there was an auto clear bug during that time. When you enter the boss fight, all the mobs are killed like how you kill it normally, which means you can just skip yellow rooms and all the main brown rooms. You just have to go there and explore it. The auto clear bug was insanely OP at the time, allowing us to get very fast runs. People also discovered that if you kill blood mobs right after it spawns, it's faster than just leaving it there and killing it. That's about it for the floor. Let's head to floor 4. Fast forwarding to July 31st, floor 4 was introduced, and it was one of the most hated floors on release. Not because of how fast Thorn moves or how many mobs there were in the boss room, it is because they nerfed Mage. Yes, they nerfed Mage. They made it so mana regen is basically non-existent, and you had to beat mobs to get mana. And they nerfed the intelligence scaling on some of the people's most beloved weapons like the Pigman Sword and the Bonzo Staff. Prices of those two items, or just any mage related items, dropped in price because Berserker was actually viable during that time. But a couple days later, admins reverted those changes because the community hated it. When I say hated it, I mean it. A couple more items were added during that floor, like the game-changing weapon called the Spirit Scepter and the Ice Spray Wand. The Spirit Scepter was insanely OP because of its big radius and the sheer clearing power, and also the Ice Spray Wand was pretty good, but on release it was like really bugged. It gave you 10% of your damage instead of plus 10 of your damage. Classic Hypixel admins, right? But overall, the Ice Spray was a really good weapon, especially against Spirit Bears in the boss fight. Also, yeah, people discovered that the Tiger Pet works on the Spirit Bow, which allows you to 2-shot or even 1-shot Thorn. It was extremely RNG, and a quad proc would take thousands of runs to happen. Here's a clip of someone getting quad proc. Me, unfortunately, never experienced a quad proc despite having almost 2,000 runs, and almost all the records at the time were double procs or triple single proc. But as more people grind the floor, a new record was made using quad proc, and it was almost impossible to beat at the time. Talking about world records, people's Catacombs XP also increased dramatically during that floor. XP runs were found during that time, and players like Egom, Toxic Eboer, would just load into a dungeon, explore for a couple minutes and leave, allowing them to get thousands of Catacombs XP within minutes. 2 months later, admins finally released Floor 5. It was one of the longest waits, and Player Skadoosh already did 3,600 runs of Floor 4. But it was worth the wait. They added a chest for S+, finally, and they nerfed XP runs, and they even added a use for boss heads. People started learning more secrets because they needed it for S+ runs for the best loot. They also added an extremely overpowered weapon called the Livid Dagger. We all know what it does and why it got nerfed. And they also added an armor set called the Shadow Assassin, and that completely changed the meta. There were more Berserker and Archers at that time because they were actually a good set for once that doesn't have an extremely high Catacombs requirement. At that time, the average Catacombs was like 25 or something, and they can't use Dungeon as strong or superior. The meta during that boss fight was to stand in the portal and shoot your Spirit Scepters or spam your Yeti Swords at the Livids walking towards you. But later onto the floor, we found out that we can go into the skull at the top and all the Livids will teleport to you, making the boss fight more consistent and faster. Also, some bugs were found during that floor. Players could pearl back to the main dungeon during the boss fight, or even use the mushroom room to teleport to the main dungeon. This made runs a bit faster, but it's nothing game changing. This floor isn't really special, but they definitely made other classes that's not mage more viable. 2 weeks later, admins released Floor 6. Floor 6 is the floor where top players found out how overpowered Archer and left click mage was. At the start of the floor, almost no one could beat it. I was in one of the best parties at the time, and it took us like 3 tries to beat it. All the average players couldn't even survive the terracotta phase, so an item was discovered that could help you with that phase, and that item is the Endstone Sword. The Endstone Sword consumes all of your mana and makes you invincible for 5 seconds. You could just spam it and you will not die the entire dungeon. It was extremely overpowered, but 2 days later, admins patched it. The patch also fixed bugs where you could teleport back to the main dungeon using pearls and skipping the entire terracotta phase. This floor also reworked necromancy. They changed the Reaper Scythe, and they added the summoning ring, but who cares about those 2 items? No one uses it. This floor didn't really come with many cool items, but they added a necromancer set, which is a pretty good tank mage set, and they added a giant sword, which was pretty bad at that time. Remember when I talked about how people found out how overpowered Archer was and left click mage was? Yeah. At the start of Floor 6, we all clowned on underscore dungeons for using left click mage, but as time passes by, we found out how overpowered left click mage was. You could easily kill giants before it drops on the floor, and it speeds up the run by a lot. The meta was to wear superior dragon armor with necrotic and use a livid dagger for backstab. Player 15H found out that you can get an extremely high crit in the main dungeon and use Ren in the boss fight. You could literally kill giant as soon as you can damage it, and it was extremely overpowered. This floor also started the Archer meta. People could literally kill giants with an explosive shot or just with a couple bones. And also, with archers, you could kill terracottas with 1 bone and you could get over 100,000 combat XP every run. More people swapped to archers, but a lot of people still stayed mage. November 17th, 2020, they added Floor 7. And at the same time, they announced that they're discontinuing dungeons and will not be releasing Floor 8, 9, and 10. But on the bright side, they made Guided Sheep better. Guided Sheep can now blow up Super Boom walls. So good, right? On release, no one could beat Floor 7. 15H, Limman, Complex Origin, Heatran, and I were the first ones to beat Floor 7, and it took us 5 to 6 hours to beat it.
Careful of where those skulls deleting.
Let's go!
Oh my ass! Almost my fuck.
Only a handful of teams were able to beat Floor 7 day 1, but more teams caught on day 2. The fly bug was found on day 2 and it made Floor 7 runs much easier. A lot of people could beat it. And even more people swapped to Archer because DPS is very important in the Necron fight, and Archer is the best class for DPS. Clean boomerang prices spiked from just 10 mil each to 25 mil each, and top parties started running more than 1 Archer. As time passes by, we found out that running 1 Archer and 2 other classes using boomerangs are better than running 3 pure Archers. Also, Yarns got the first Necron Sandal and it was sold to Speedsilver for 140 mil. Speedsilver made a video on the Valkyrie and the prices spiked up that day, and on the same day, scroll drops got fixed. After the first 3 scrolls Hyperion got crafted, people realized it can significantly reduce the amount of time spent on clearing, and because of this, the handle prices rose even higher from just 200 mil to 450 mil. And at this point, a new standard has been made on the new sword. The older records are now easily beaten by the sheer clearing power of the Hyperion. After this era, the short-lasting Archer themes have been replaced by Hyperions. Furthermore, the enchanting update dropped, buffing mages even more. In addition to the sheep pet buff now giving 20 ability damage at level 100, and each enchanting level now gives 0.5 ability damage on top of everything, these stacked Hyperion parties smashed all the previous records. The world record went from 8 minutes and 5 seconds all the way down to under 5 minutes. Runs started getting more optimized, and world record players got times to under 4 minutes. Fast forward a month, it's January 6th, and it's when good times come to an end. Admins finally rolled out the patch that will fix Tarantula Boots Fly. Patching Tarantula Boots Fly will slow down dungeon runs by a lot, because you can't get the crystals, mid-air crush, nor can you do terminals ahead of time. And on that day, many top dungeon players quit. But Hypixel players being Hypixel players, they found ways to bypass it. The main ways being Bonzo Staff, Shadow's Fury, and Rabbit Hat Stack. Dungeons were still slow, but it's better than nothing. But a couple days later, admins released the Jerry Mayer update. And with that update, they added a weapon called the Jerry Sheen Gun. That weapon single-handedly made dungeons enjoyable again. You could easily mid-air crush using the Jerry Sheen Gun, and you can get the crystals with ease, but good things will always come to an end. With the release of the Dwarven Mines update, admins patched those cheeses we all loved and adored. Remember that video I made on dungeon cheeses? Yeah, throw that out of the window. You can't cheese dungeon puzzles like the trap room, the bomb defuse puzzle, and you can't even get secrets of the stonk anymore. That slowed down dungeon runs even more, and if you get a bomb defuse puzzle, that means you're adding 2 minutes to your total runtime. But a couple days later, admins reverted those changes in dungeons, but they added some countermeasures that will prevent players from cheesing puzzles. They reinforced the bomb defuse puzzle, and they added wool to the trap room. But Hypixel players being Hypixel players, they quickly found ways around it. And yeah, here we are now. A lot of the top dungeon players quit dungeons, with myself included, and you can tell by just looking at dungeon item prices. Handles are almost at 400 mil, but a month ago it was 260 mil. Dungeons are just getting so repetitive, and it feels like a chore to play dungeons, when you can be playing something that you actually enjoy. And yeah, that sums up the video. This video took way too long to make, so please click the subscribe button, and peace out.